Hello everybody, my name is Robin Butler. Actually, it's Robin Forrest Butler of Sherwood in the Forest. Today we're going to talk about a nonprofit, Noah, and the Tiny House of Hope. And we're going to talk about the tiny house movement, which is sweeping the nation right now. It's all over the television, YouTube, and it's like the wild, wild west. So today we're going to talk about some challenges, we're going to talk about some solutions, and we're going to talk about how you can benefit and how you can get involved. I brought this little tiny house in early this morning, and curious, even before this place was open, people were here and they were coming out and looking at it, asking questions. It's just such an interesting concept that you actually see something like that and they say, whoa, going down the road, they look at you, beep their horn, roll your window down, this kind of thing. My name is Robin Forrest Butler, and I'm going to tell you what we're going to be doing here. I'll tell you a little bit about myself first, and then we're going to talk about some of the challenges that are in the tiny house business. We'll talk about some great possibilities and solutions that we have for some of the challenges that are out there right now. And then we're going to talk about helping the homeless. And that's going to be our portion on the Tiny House of Hope. So without further ado, I'm a builder-developer, been a builder-developer all my life, and I used to build big stuff. Laura Lee knows some of this is called the Robin Hood. Also, my daughter has always been enamored with small houses, and she drew up a set of plans for something. Well, back in the day, I'm not going to tell you how far back, we had a piece of property on the Shenendoah River that was in the floodplain, and we built a tree house right there on the river, 13 feet off the ground, and in a sycamore tree. And then in the summertime, all the leaves, it was brown with shingles, all the leaves would cover it, and all you saw was a set of stairs going up into the tree, which is kind of cool. We also, and you can't really tell it from this, but we're also involved in a thing called glamping. Has anybody ever heard of glamping? There you go. It's called Glamorous Camping, and these are like hotels in canvas that have air conditioning, queen-size beds, and et cetera, et cetera. We started building, this particular house was built in 2008, so we started building smaller houses way back when. We're also build a little bit bigger ones. That one there, let's see if we can go back to it. That one is built on wheels, and this one is on a foundation. And the people that live on this house, it's on a lot, et cetera, et cetera. It's 460 square feet, but they have Harley Davidsons, and they wanted a garage for their Harley, so their garage is bigger than their house. So, in order for us to be able to talk apples to apples, I wanted to explain and have a definition of a tiny house. A tiny house is a vehicular type unit primarily designed as permanent living quarters, which is also, number one, towed by another vehicle, regulated by the United States Department of Transportation and Highway Traffic Safety Administration as a vehicle, or it could be vehicle equipment. In other words, if you're towing a trailer, the vehicle is the car and the vehicle equipment is the trailer. It does not require a special highway use permit for operation on the highways, and it can easily be transported and set up by an individual. So that's going to be our definition for today for a tiny house on wheels. Now, of course, these are on wheels also, but they're considered park models. They're 400 or less square feet, not including porches, and we're not going to have those as our tiny houses. So it's just going to be the tiny house on wheels. All right, so give me some of you that have been watching this for 4 years or whatever, give me some challenges in the tiny house industry. Zoning? Okay, where are you going to put it? Yes?
What will the requirements be for it to stay there?
What requirements to stay there? Okay.
Will there be tiny house parks?
Yeah, tiny house parks. Will there be? there's a whole movement out there of sustainability where people are building them with solar, with the one that we have right now that's going to be in the Apopka Fair is a sustainable tiny house. It has solar panels and battery backup. It has an outhouse with a composting toilet and a gray water filtering system. The only thing that a sustainable house needs is some water supply. And even at that, you can have a gutter system that would go down into a cistern and use that as your water supply. So yeah, that's a whole different topic, but there is a lot of people that are interested in being off-grid, what they call off-grid and self-sustaining. Any other challenges that anybody can think of when we're talking about the tiny house? What would be some concerns that you would have if you were out there looking for, yeah?
The downsizing.
Oh, yeah, downsizing. The one that's going to be in the parade is 50 square feet. 50 square feet. That's 5 foot by 10 foot. So that's 5 feet by 10 feet. Of course, the outhouse is out. It doesn't include the outhouse. But the heated square foot is 5 feet. But it has a porch. It's kind of an interesting unit. Anybody else can come up with any other challenges?
The skill to build one.
Skill to build, okay. There's a lot of what they call do-it-yourselfers out there that are building their own whatever, with no skill to start out with, but they learn along the way. It's on-the-job training. Trailer, okay. Yeah, what type? And how to load it, yeah, how to build it on the trailer. A lot of questions there about, size of axles, size of vehicle to tow the unit. Yeah, those are very good concerns.
And then once you set it up, you've either got to have a septic or be able to move it to empty a holding tank, right?
A septic? Well, some people are using what's called a composting toilet and then a gray water filtering system. So the composting toilet, you don't have any septic. It's compost. Nature's Head is the most popular one right now.
It really works.
Yes.
It worked pretty well.
And then the gray water filtering, which is your shower and your sink water, goes through a filter system, and then you use it for watering your grass, or you can use it for other, uses. It's not potable, but it is can be used.
Where can you empty the compost?
Well, there's a video online. You can make a 55-gallon drum if you have it placed somewhere and use that as your composting. And then you use it, and once it's composted, you use it around your flower beds and that kind of thing.
What if you're trailering around the country?
Well, that's why you basically you have a composting toilet. Depending on if it's just you or a couple, it's not going to be a lot, and you can every couple of months is really what you would need to dump it, and you'd have to go to a dump station to do that, where an RV park or something. And then there's the incinerating toilet, but you have to have a lot of power. A solar doesn't work well with solar. You have to have, if you plug up to a 50 amp breaker at a park somewhere, you can use an incinerating toilet, and it just incinerates everything, and every 4 or 5 months you take the dust out. But that is a concern. What's your septic going to be? Also, what's your water supply going to be? That's in sustainability. That's going to be your biggest thing. And water's going to get a lot more complicated as pollution comes on. Yes.
I'm going to say the design, you don't want any wasted space. So.
Okay. Yeah, that's good. The use of space. Yeah. Yeah, when you're building a tiny house, you want to have multiple uses of everything that's in there. This is the bed, now it's a desk, now it's a chair, for sitting. Right? Anything else? These are all good ones, and we'll try to, I'll come up with a couple of them that I have, somebody said, how do we build it? Design, skill, yeah. Is it legal in every state? That's a good question. Is it legal in this state? You can build it so that it's not legal in this state.
About the different material, the building materials.
Yeah, that's important too, when you build it, the material. The weight, yeah. Although I have seen one with a tile roof.
They have to be really glued down because keep riding down the road.
Yeah, that would be bad for the guy behind you. So how do I build my house? What material am I going to use? Is it going to be legal? Are we going to design it with the right use of space? That kind of thing. That's important. Or what if you get somebody to build it? How do you know this guy even knows how to build a tiny house? And I know of one builder that he does exactly what the customer tells him, and it's the worst thing to do. I mean, he built a pull-down bed that once it's pulled down, you can't get out of the unit. It blocks the door. Not a good idea. And you go up the stairs to the loft, and there's no room. You bump your head trying to get into it's such a little loft. So yeah, he builds what they want, but you need somebody that's going to have some experience and advise you. It's not a good idea. Maybe let's do this over here. So we want to talk about that. Nobody brought this up, but that's a big concern for a lot of people. Can I get insurance? Right? What do they cost? What do you think these things cost? $20,000 to $80,000.
According to HGTV.
There you go. And you're right. That's a good number. So can I get financing? Does everybody? I mean, today, if you want to buy a tiny house, you need $20,000 to $80,000. How many people here? I'm not going to ask you, but can come up with $20,000 to $80,000 cash to lay down to buy one of these things? I mean, it's a great concept, but if you can't afford it, that's.
Well, wouldn't it like you finance a fifth wheel or something?
And I said 20 to 60, but you can go 60 plus. I'm sorry?
Wouldn't it come under just like a fifth wheel, something like that?
Unfortunately not. Unfortunately, and we're going to talk about that, what the problem is and what some of the solutions are going to be, what the challenges are and what some of the solutions. But, you have to pay cash. There's no, I mean, we do have a pay-as-you-go. We've got somebody that's on a pay-as-you-go program right now, but they give us a little money, we do a little work. They give us a little money, we do a little work. It's that kind of a thing. And then if you're going to be a builder, I don't know if anybody's thinking about this as a business, but how many houses have you lost what's called an RVIA certificate? There's an RVIA certificate, which is recreational vehicle industry, and what some of the builders are doing, and we'll talk about the challenges with this, is they're going and get RVIA certified, however, in order to overcome some of the obstacles and the challenges. But there's a real problem with that, and we'll talk about that today. And then somebody talked about zoning, the RV parks, tiny house parks, a friend's backyard. Believe it or not, there's a lot of them going in the backyard, and it's okay until somebody complains. As soon as somebody complains, then zoning comes in. But if your neighbors are happy with you, early on in the movement, that's where everybody went, was in somebody's side yard or their backyard. However, there's some challenges with that. Really going to focus on today is the site-built house, tiny house. In other words, this is not a tiny house on wheels, but it still gets into the whole movement of downsizing and all that goes along with the smaller house. And there's some challenges with that also because zoning, back to zoning again, won't allow a house of, say, less than 1,000 square feet, which is Seminole County in certain zoning areas. So those are some real challenges, right? And there's more. You guys can come up with your own. But, you know, you've got this great idea. All of you here are saying, wow, this is great. I want to find out some more information about it. And then you find out what the challenge, you see what the reality of the tiny house movement is. You're like, how do I can't. I can't. I can't save up that kind of money. I don't want to put all that money into something that if it burns down, I can't get my money back out of it. Where am I going to put it? You know, how can I, you know, so there's those types of things that everybody has to ask their question. I mean, it's great to see it on TV and it looks beautiful, and they are cute. We'll go look at one, you know, later on today. But let's face reality and what challenges we are up against. But the good news is that, I have some more. There's no recognized standard to ensure safety and quality. I mean, it's the wild, wild west out there. You can go out and buy a secondhand trailer, or you can buy a broken down RV and tear it off and build something on it. And that's what people are doing. You can have a builder out there that says, puts up a shingle, I build tiny houses, and yet he may be a good guy, he may be a bad guy. How is the unit attached to the frame? What about, I mean, you're in a hurricane every time you go driving down the road 60 miles an hour, you know? So is this thing going to blow apart? You know, are things going to blow off of it? And I've seen it happen. I've seen siding blow off as they go down the road, you know, so it's the real deal. So there's no recognized standard to ensure the safety and quality, and the tiny house on wheels. TOW is tiny house on wheels. And then we get into what a lot of the builders, the manufacturers are doing, are going out and getting an RVIA sticker, an RVIA certification. However, the Recreational Vehicle Association represents RVs and PMRVs, which are park model RVs. And they have put out a statement that the purpose built as a temporary accommodation for camping and seasonal use only. RVIA does not represent manufactured housing or tiny house on wheels intended for permanent residences. Well, everybody that's in the movement is thinking, this is my house. I want to live in this thing. It's not going to be a weekend getaway, although some people do build them for that. But 90% of the people out there are thinking, this is my permanent residence. I'm going to live in this thing. I'm going to sell my house and I'm going to live in my tiny house. Or I am living with mom and dad. The millennials love these. I'm living with mom and dad, and I would love to own a place of my own. However, I'm laden down with student debt, and to look at a mortgage payment for 30 years is like, it's not going to happen. However, something like this is more like a car payment. So they're looking at it for permanent housing. So therein lies the rub, that the RVIA, which is the only other thing out there, there is a PWA, but they have the Pacific West Coast Association. They have the same thing, that these are for temporary use only. You have to lie and say, I'm just going to live in it for for temporary use on the weekends. And for instance, if it burns down and the insurance company finds out it was your permanent residence, they're going to, sorry, you told it was an RV, you know. And the banks are the same way. If it's considered an RVIA, some banks will lend on it as an RV. Somebody asked about, that question, if it was just like a fifth wheel or something. Yeah, they will lend on it if it's done correctly with all of your VIN numbers and RVA stickers. They will lend on it as a recreational vehicle, what they call a travel trailer. However, you can't live in it full time. And if the bank finds out, they can call the loan, which is not what you want to happen. So those are some challenges. So is everybody ready to leave now? Well, NOAA, which is National Organization of Alternative Housing, is trying to overcome a lot of these challenges that we're involved with right now with the tiny house business. And we're launching officially this NOAA Tiny House Certification Program January of this next year, 2016. So it's right around the corner. So we're in the pre-launch stage right now. And what I'd like to talk about for a few minutes is exactly how does NOAA, National Organization of Alternative Housing, solve some of the problems that the tiny house industry has right now. NOAA is a nonprofit 501c3, which means we're transparent. We're here to serve the community, and we want to let everybody know that we're not here to make a whole lot of money. We're here to help you guys that want to build your tiny house to do it legally and in a way that will work for you. We're setting standards for this is who we are attempting to protect with this certification. The manufacturers and component suppliers. In other words, everybody's going to build to the same specifications. Everybody's going to be apples to apples, and your component suppliers, which are your siding, your windows. Right now they're talking about windows that have to be tempered glass or have shutters on them, and that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of things that you don't think about if you go out as a do-it-yourselfer and try to build your tiny house, that you would like to have some kind of manual or specification that this is the people that have done the research and are building tiny houses right now. This is what you need to do in order to build one. So we're going to protect the do-it-yourselfer also. And those are the guys that aren't manufacturers, but we're going to have a program specifically designed just for do-it-yourselfers. And then the lenders and the insurance providers, obviously we want to take good care of those people. And the homeowner, if you buy from a manufacturer and it's been certified by NOAA, you're going to know that it has met certain specifications. I think we did lenders and insurance providers and banks. So I just want to emphasize that. So what are the NOAA standards for a tow? We have certain National Fire Protection Agency standards. It's NFPA 1192, which talks about all of your fire protection, your places of egress, having to have 2 points of egress in case of a fire, your smoke detectors, your CO2 detectors, your fire extinguishers, the material that you use when you're building the thing, especially if you have propane. You want to be sure that you're meeting certain construction guidelines when you're putting a propane water heater or a propane refrigerator or a propane stove inside of your space. And one of the neat things about the tiny houses is they're well insulated. One of the bad things about the tiny houses is they're well insulated. So if you've got something going on the inside, it can't get out. And that could be a bad thing, either moisture or some kind of gas. Also, National Electric Code, that's NFPA 70. We're going to have those specifications where you'll know that whether you're doing solar with DC current or a combination or 110 or 220, that the house has met the National Electric Code specifications. And then American National Standards Institute is who comes up with all of these programs to decide what do you need to have in this particular house. Like it's a tiny house on wheels, and this one's going to be a park model, and this is going to be something else like a house on a foundation. Well, ANSI is the one that comes up with those specifications, so we're following, with NOAA, we're following all of that. And the American Tiny House Association. This is a great association that's specific for tiny houses. You can look it up. It's American Tiny Houses Association.org or .com. I can't remember which. And in that, they have construction guidelines, and we're adopting those construction guidelines, and they're in flux. They're always improving those construction guidelines specific for tiny houses.
How much like an RV is this?
It's not like an RV at all. It's on wheels. That's how much it's like it. You know, an RV is a tin can. It's aluminum and some not very good foam. It's usually not sprayed foam. It's expanded, not the extruded foam. And I mean, the inside, they look good, especially when you have them new. However, they depreciate so fast over time. If you go on Craigslist or something and you see, an RV that was $30,000 is now, 5 years later being sold for 10 or less. So they depreciate dramatically. Where these houses are built to last. I'm from up north. These are built with 2x4 framing, 16 inches on center. And when you build with wood framing properly, the houses up north were 100 years old. I've lived in 150-year-old houses, frame houses. They last.
I noticed that the one that you showed us a photo of has a tag like a car or an RV.
They all will have to have tags if they're going to be pulled on the highway. That one out there has a tag on it. So DOT gets involved. So you're dealing with DOT, you're dealing with the unit itself, what it's all about, and then fire protection and all of that. So the other question mark is, we also will certify that the house is what we look at is the number one, the axles. You have 3,500-pound axles, you have 5,200-pound axles are kind of the standards. So if your tiny house, which that one out there complete, right now this one, the one that we're going to go look at is unfinished on the inside. It's our display model for, we're outfitting it with flooring and kitchen cabinets and all kinds of things. We're going to show you the construction of it. So it's our educational unit is what that's all about. But finished, that one will be pushing about 9,000 pounds, and then you put everything else in it, you're going to be pushing 10,000 pounds easy. And so we have two 5,200-pound axles on it. We've done one that was a 24-footer with some porches. We had to put 3 axles under that one. So it depends upon what you build with the material, especially the siding. That one right there, we did we were going to make it into, we have canvas on 3 sides, and then we have our normal siding on the front. But we did that for weight, thinking that we're going to have a lot of stuff on the inside, and we don't want to overload the unit itself. So that's a big concern, is the weight of the vehicle. So when DOT now, and the DOT has no idea what we're up against here. The first time I took a tiny house in, they said you had to go weigh it. So we took it and we weighed it. And then we took it back to them and they said, are you going to live in it? Well, not us, but somebody was going to live in it. Well, then you don't have to weigh it. You have to have it inspected. So we bring it over to them and they come out and they said, yeah, if it's lived in, it's considered a travel trailer. And so we have to inspect it. And so they inspected it and they put a sticker on the inside of the door, and they said, okay, that's the last time you'll be able to do that. And so I called the guy in, they gave me a number of a guy in Washington, D.C., and he said, well, they're tiny houses. They're not really an RV. Okay, so that's when we started to come up with, what are we? We're something out there that's outside of the norm. And so we needed to have a self-regulating industry, a self-regulating entity, because the first time somebody gets hurt with one blows off on the highway or something like that happens, the government's going to step in if we haven't come in and done something. So that's the reason that we started this NOAA. So with NOAA, we're going to have, there'll be a membership application, and depending upon whether you're a do-it-yourself or a manufacturer, You will have a membership application. Then you'll get certified by us. We do a background, for manufacturers, we do a background check. We physically go out to their plant, do an inspection, and as things go, we will do better with inspections. We're even thinking of having cameras in the plant, because in the world we live in today, we could anytime, day or night, go on the computer if we have it properly set up and see what's going on there. We have compliance inspections that are done on every unit. So whether you're a do-it-yourself or you're just building one, we're going to have a compliance inspection on the trailer, on the rough-in, and on the completion. And if you're a manufacturer, we'll do the same thing on every unit that comes out. And then we have a quality control program, whereas if you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing, there's a process of, okay, we give you a certain amount of time to get it right. If you don't get it right, you can lose your certification. So there's a whole process of quality control that goes into it. And then once you've done everything that you're supposed to do, you're going to get a seal. And this is the seal here, National Organization of Alternative Housing. And you can't really read that, but it says the manufacturer certifies compliance with the standards for tiny house on wheels. And I don't even have my glasses on, but it's certified. What they do is they sign a pledge that we will build to the NFPA 1192, the NFPA 70 National Electric Code, to the American Tiny House Association construction guidelines. They sign a pledge to that, and that gives us the power and authority to say, hey guy, you're not doing what you pledged, so we can pull or we can discipline you in whatever way we need to discipline. And we don't mind kids. We love kids. I just ended up with a little 5-year-old in August, and I thought I was done. But it changed my life, believe me. I have a life from 8 o'clock when I drop her off at the bus stop and 4 o'clock when I pick her up. The rest of the time is devoted to her, so I understand kids. And so every unit is going to have a number, and those numbers are going to be archived with the inspection report, and it's going to be a digital inspection that's done either with photographs or with actually a video, and those will be archived 10 years, maybe forever, so that down the road 10 years, if the insurance company calls us and they give us that number, we can pull up that inspection, and if the manufacturer wants to give the person that they're selling the unit to, they can give them a videotape of the rough-in inspection, everything. So if they want to hang something on the wall, they can tell that there's a wire going right there and they don't want to put something there. So there's a lot of uses for that, but that's one of the powerful things with this unit. This will be displayed on the tongue of the unit itself. It's going to be on a part that won't be easily taken off. The seal itself will disintegrate if you try to take it off and put it on another unit. So it's a program where we're self-regulating to a point that if the government comes in and says, what are you doing, we can tell them. And if they have some suggestions, obviously we're flexible. We have a board of directors and bylaws and that kind of thing that we can self-govern rather than having the government step in. Anytime the government steps in, you can figure your costs are going to go through the roof, and there's going to be a lot more headaches with building your stuff. Come on in. Welcome. This is our display model where we train people about how to build tiny houses. As you can see, this tiny house is roughed in with the electric and the plumbing. And I'm going to give you a little guided tour of how this house will play out once it's completed. In this corner over here, or the back of the tiny house, is a bathroom with a 32-inch shower and a raised toilet, comfortable for our elderly folk. And if you wanted, we could do a bump out right here with a sink, a bathroom sink. It has a barn door that slides right beside the toilet. And then as you come out here, there's a kitchen sink here, so we didn't put a sink in this particular unit because the kitchen sink is so close. So you would have a base cabinet, kitchen sink, and then an on-demand hot water heater here, upper cabinet. Then on the other side of the galley kitchen is a refrigerator and a microwave. That's what that box is for, the refrigerator and the microwave. Another base cabinet with a 2-burner stove. Now the whole unit is spray foam insulated, and if you're environmentally conscious, you might want to use soy-based spray foam. But as you can see in this photograph, once that spray foam is in there, this thing is very, very tight. The foam actually glues itself to the studs. It's also a waterproofing, and it makes a wonderful unit for transporting on wheels down the road that's going to bounce around quite a bit. Now, in this corner over here, there is a window seat that you can sit at and then fold up the dining room table for a kitchen and put a couple of chairs here if you have guests. Then fold the table down, and the window seat actually pulls out into a single bed. And then right over here, we have a place for a same box right here is used for a electric baseboard, and then this box right here is used for the air conditioner. It's a portable air conditioner that vents out through the floor, and then the stairway will be right here. You can either have a ladder stair or you can have a storage stair, whatever your heart desires. The loft is large enough for a queen-sized bed, and it also has windows, slider windows on both sides so you can get some fresh air. There's a 3-way switch up there, or a 3-way switch here, so you can switch it up and down. And then this other loft, which is our storage loft, is also large enough for a single bed in case you needed to have additional sleeping area. As far as storage, you have storage underneath of the window seat, and then right here beside this beautiful window, we have a storage cabinet for all your hanging and your pantry. And that's the storage in the unit. That's where you usually need a lot more space. You want your storage stuff. So that's our tour. Thank you guys for spending a little bit of time with us, and we hope you come and see us again.